All right, Kevin's got it set up for recording right now, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Yeah, you're good. Got her stuff out, all right. All right, everybody, welcome. We're gonna get rolling here so we can get through some stuff. You've got a packet in front of you with the minutes from last meeting, some reports, agendas, all that for your books, and we'll get started.
All righty, just housekeeping. I just turned my phone off, so I wouldn't embarrass myself. So we're gonna just lightly or briefly go through some civil service items. I brought with me tonight our Director of Human Resources in the Civil Service Department, Nicole Maggio, who could go through some things. Much of this items are really just for review as examples of titles that are already within the system. If these don't exactly equal what we're looking for, we can always make other items. I'll let Nicole speak to that itself. On page 2, there's item number 4 that I'm going to have her review as well, an additional handout regarding civil service. And you'll note there's 2 asterisks on 2 titles that I would assume may not be relevant for a consolidated system. That would be the billing coordinator, presuming that we would have a contract, and ambulance driver, which was kind of a animal of necessity for a while, but I would think would go away. But that's just edification. So, Nicole, I will turn it over to you. We can lightly go through some of the titles that are existing. You have examples of other county titles as well, and then we'll flip the page.
So again, looking at ambulance billing coordinator, there was really only one of those that was being used by any of the local municipalities. And I'm not even sure that that municipality is continuing to do that. A lot of that kind of work is being contracted out. But it's something that if we did bring an in-house title, I would just make revisions to it because it's very specific for a local municipality and not necessarily for a county position. But as an existing title, the way that that works for any of these actually, when you have an existing title, any kind of revisions have to go back through the Civil Service Commission. The Civil Service Commission is on the 4th Wednesday of every month. Any revisions have to go through them. They have to approve them. And then after that point, you can use the revised title. Anybody who's hired under a title is hired under the title as it stands on the date of their hire. So revisions made after the fact don't necessarily cover that particular employee. So my suggestion is any kind of revisions that we're going to make to titles, we should do prior to onboarding employees as county employees so that they apply to the employees that are coming in.
Who uses that coordinator position now?
I don't think anybody does. Catskill used it at one point.
Still, none of the other colleagues.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Actually, that ended up being a layoff position and I think it ended up getting out.
Yeah, I was just wondering
Yeah.
if that position had anything to do with the higher return rate or not. But it wasn't, that's okay.
And again, ambulance driver was need. I saw it a lot on the mountaintop. We have not been getting a whole lot of ambulance driver new hires. We're seeing it up there where you needed somebody to drive the ambulance that wasn't necessarily an EMT or providing medical. They just needed somebody to get the rig to where it was going. I don't think in the example of what is being looked at for the county that that's going to be a necessary position, but again, you know, it's there if we need it. The bottom three, EMT, advanced EMT and paramedic. Advanced EMT is a relatively new position. Some of you who have reached out to me about advanced EMT in the past, I told you we didn't have the position. We didn't. We adopted it in June. So that's where that came from. EMT and paramedic, they were relatively newly updated, both in 2020. The other administrator and coordinator and supervisor positions, my thoughts on that are we're probably gonna take a look at those in conjunction with the examples that I have from other municipalities that actually have countywide services. Because I think that the existing descriptions that are used in Catskill and Hunter for the most part, officially used in Catskill and Hunter for the most part, are not broad enough to deal with what we're gonna be dealing with at the county level. So I do think that we are gonna have some job descriptions that need to be created. Just like I said, for revising job descriptions, creation of a job description has to go through the Civil Service Commission. So again, it could be a 2-month process where we start to develop it. It goes back and forth until there's an agreed upon draft, and then it goes before the Civil Service Commission for their adoption. It cannot be used, the title cannot be used until the Civil Service Commission officially adopts a job description. Any questions on the job descriptions?
And Nicole, don't we already have some of these already in place?
So all of the top ones here, right under number 2, the top bullets down to where it says packet of titles from other counties. They exist already, but they don't necessarily exist in a form that would apply to county. A lot of them apply to specifically apply to towns. And it's referenced in the job description. So again, we would have to do some revisions to it so that it was more broad and applied to the county.
So if we make a change to a job description that's currently under the New York Health, and we change it, will it still fall under the health?
It will still fall under. None of these fall under health because
Even with the list that just came out Friday? It's like 1,200 titles on the thing.
so those are state
Okay.
health titles. Health titles at the local level are different. We actually have to request our own. So while the state is utilizing about 1,200 of them, in Greene County, we have about 120 health titles. None of these would be, well, the EMT, the advanced EMT and paramedic will never be approved under health because they're not an official written exam. They're what's called a training and experience exam. So they submit their application. There's a rating scale. And I look at training, make sure that they have all the minimum qualifications, certifications, high school diploma, driver's license, all that kind of stuff. And then any experience they have above and beyond minimum qualification raises their score from 70 to higher. So it's not an official written exam. It doesn't take a long time to get results. As soon as I get an application, I can rate. Somebody in my office can rate it and we can turn it around in a matter of days. Keeping in mind, I'm doing this for currently like maybe 1 or 2 a week. If this all comes to fruition, and we're talking about some people who work in the towns now that no matter how many times I've said you haven't completed your civil service application, now they're gonna be rushing to the office to get that done because they're gonna wanna be able to transfer their status. It may take a little bit longer, but these are immediate results.
Nicole, so some of these that have to be edited, like for example, the coordinator of emergency services, if the county's opinion was to utilize that title, what's the time frame look like to edit it for our needs, submit it to wherever it needs to be submitted? Does that hold up the process of hiring someone?
So you can't hire somebody into the title until, again, until you have it finalized, because if you hire them in the previous version of the title, that's the version that applies to them for the length of their employment. We hold a commission meeting every 4 weeks. As long as I have the revisions to the title, at least 5 business days before the actual commission meeting, I can make sure it gets on the agenda for that meeting. So you're never gonna, more than likely, you won't see a delay of more than 3 to 4 weeks.
It's getting the approval.
Right.
to get it there, that's gonna take the time.
Right, it's about everybody agreeing to the revised version of the draft. Coming to a finalized draft that everybody agrees on is usually the most time consuming piece of it. When we have a finalized draft, as long as I have that 2 days before the commission meeting, I can add it to the agenda.
And then once it's on the agenda, assuming all goes well, what does that look like as far as the time frame perspective?
As soon as the commission meeting is over and they've adopted it, it's immediately available for use.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is just gonna be housekeeping, scratch town, insert county type language. Unless you get to
Some of the admin titles are probably
Yeah.
gonna be a little bit more.
maybe number 3 on page 2, if we were truly gonna create one rather than modify or amend one. That process, either by committee or whomever is gonna be in charge of writing down the job duties and qualifications, then you're probably talking more weeks involved. I think most of these things is really just housekeeping.
Yeah, creation of a title there's an actual form that we use, it goes out to whoever the appointing authority is, and in this case, I would assume it's gonna be some kind of committee. And it very specifically asks for duties and percentage of time spent on duties. It will ask you for what your preferred knowledge, skills, and abilities are for candidates, and it will give you the space to tell me what kind of minimum qualifications are necessary, what kind of certification for licensure is necessary. It's very specific, and then once I have that information, I can put it into the job description format.
Nicole, are we able to request additional meetings during the month, or is that set by state law that they only meet once a month?
It is not set by state law. It's a matter of trying to get the commissioners together. Could we ask for a special meeting? We could if it was necessary.
All right, any questions on items 1, 2? And then 3? I think this is pretty cut and dry. All right, now we'll move on to item 4, and I guess Nicole, you could just slightly review civil service law.
Sure. Just slightly reviewing civil service law. So civil service law allows for the transfer of titles, of people who hold titles. So for example, the most common ones that we see are police officers, right? We can transfer from being a police officer in a local municipality to a deputy sheriff, or even from a sheriff's office in a different county into Greene County. That's what we've seen most of the time. In this case, we're gonna be doing, or we can, bring in the employees who are currently employed in actual civil service, off of an eligible list, existing titles, and have permanent status in the local municipality. So I'll use Catskill as an example. Catskill has a number of EMTs that I know, I have rated their scores, put them on the eligible list, and they've been hired from the eligible list. They have competitive status as an EMT in the town of Catskill. I can bring them into a county department as an EMT because it's the exact same title. And I can do this even easier if we're doing this through a transfer of function, which means we're transferring the emergency services responsibility from the town of Catskill to the county. And we'll be doing that amongst all of the different municipalities. The key component here is that they have to have been appointed from the eligible list. They have to have taken the training and experience exam I just talked about, where they submit their application and their filing fee. I review it, I assign them a score based on their experience and their training. They go on the eligible list, and the town officially appoints them from there through the official civil service process. They have to have completed their probationary period, which is a minimum of 8 weeks and a maximum of 52. You have employees that you have recently hired that have completed 8 weeks, that you're confident are going to be really great EMTs, and you want them to be able to transfer, you can release them early from the 52-week probationary period. I don't suggest doing that, though, to be perfectly honest. It's not a good practice. 52 weeks is a fair probationary period, but again, they're not eligible for the transfer. What does the transfer of status do for the employee? And this is important for you guys to take back to your employees. It allows them to keep their original date of hire, which means they keep their seniority. So it doesn't matter if you were hired in the town of Catskill, or the town of Hunter, or the town of Cooksaki. Your seniority when you come into the county is based on your date of hire, your permanent date of hire from the eligible list, and you bring that with you. This is gonna be important when we talk, are we gonna talk later about, yeah, this will be important for a conversation we're gonna have later on, so, but again, your seniority is based on your original date of hire off of the eligible list. That's the importance of being able to transfer that status from the local where you're working now into the county when the new department is established.
What's the difference if an employee comes from a not-for-profit that is not already? Is that able to also move their or carry their seniority?
So no, not for civil service purposes. It does not. They've never come from an eligible list. They never had permanent competitive civil service status. So no, they will not have that from a civil service standpoint. Now, seniority comes into play in a lot of different things. For the most part, civil service seniority is there for layoff purposes. That's what civil service seniority basically is for. If and when a union picks up these employees, which I believe a union will, which one, I don't know yet, but I do believe a union will pick up these employees. The negotiated collective bargaining agreement can speak to different ways seniority is calculated for things like shift assignment, vacation bids, all those kinds of stuff. That could be collectively bargained and it can be different than what the civil service seniority looks like. But as far as, like I said, civil service seniority, those that are coming in from the not-for-profits will not keep that seniority in their original date of hire.
And they'll have to go through the whole process for civil service to get on the list and be.
Correct,
Yeah, they'd have to go through that process, and they basically start over
yes.
at day one.
Nicole, how does this impact retirement?
It does not impact retirement as long as they were a member of the retirement system in the municipalities they're in, and I believe that most are. They will be able to keep whatever tier they were in their retirement. Again, those coming from the not-for-profit, if they weren't a part of the state retirement system, they'll be entering as a new employee.
Do we have lists of current employees that are in not-for-profits that wouldn't be eligible, and then the current list of those eligible, or those that do not have all the documents necessary for transfer?
So one of the things that my office has been working on is getting a list of those that my office has been made aware of. And I believe that Mr. Groden was going to get official employee lists from each of the municipalities, so I can compare the two.
So for an employee that is employed by a municipality, but was not pulled from the civil service list, they have to get on the civil service list,
Correct,
and their seniority essentially starts at that date.
that's correct. Seniority starts at the date they are hired from the eligible list.
For civil service.
For civil service.
Correct.
We don't know what the union's gonna.
Correct. I could certainly see you basically having two dates in the system. Your civil service date, which is really specific to layoffs. Who has tenure based upon their active list versus, okay, you've been working for XYZ, either not-for-profit or whatever, and you joined us, but you had 5 years of service. We could negotiate giving you those years of service as it relates to earning vacation time and shift biddings, and so you wouldn't lose that term as long as when we review your credentials, you have met that civil service criteria.
That's good to know.
So your Greene EMS, your Durham, your Greenville, all your not-for-profits could fall into that category, and you've got people with 20 years plus.
I mean, I think I'm gonna have people in the town of Hunter that maybe were not hired off the civil service list that have been qualified and are in the state retirement system, put in multiple years of service, that are also gonna want that same accommodation once they go on the civil services.
Again, it'll be a matter of, how the collective bargaining agreement is negotiated. And like I said, I have no doubt that a union will pick up these employees. I just don't know which union that will be at, and that's not up to the county to decide. The Taylor law states that the unions make claims on the positions, and if there's more than one union that does that, then it goes to PERB, and PERB makes that decision, not the county.
May I ask a question?
Hang on, I have a question first.
I got two things for you. You know what?
Can't hear you.
You know what year we started doing civil service for EMS? Cause I know it wasn't, when I first started, it was at some other point and that they weren't always there. So
They were not.
we had a whole bunch of people that would have the same seniority date in that.
So it was somewhere around 2014, 2015,
Yeah.
somewhere in that
Right.
vicinity is when it fell, when we were required to start covering EMTs and paramedics within the towns. That's when New York State Civil Service required it. It was somewhere in there. So you're right. There are gonna be quite a few people who have the same seniority date.
My second thing was, you said when you were hired off the list as your seniority. If you change status,
Part-time to full-time?
no, well, part-time, full-time, or
Title.
EMT to paramedic. Is it the first date on the EMT, or would it be the second date when you were hired as a paramedic?
If you're going from EMT to paramedic, it's considered a promotion. And in a promotion situation, you fall back to your original date of hire and the lower title.
I don't know if it was a separate one or.
Nope.
But that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
It could take a while, from what I'm understanding previous meetings, it could take a while for us, for the union to step in to recognize that. Months, the county, because there are a lot of, I know, speaking for Greene EMS, 20-year employees who now will have no seniority, would the county be willing to, before the union steps in, or it could be the one to set the seniority based on that, or does the county have to wait for or whomever approves that?
So here's what I can tell you. The county can do that. But once PERB makes that decision and the union can change the terms that the county agreed upon.
With collective bargaining.
Correct.
So yes,
So
we
I
can
did
do
not
it.
answer your question. I'm
Right.
sorry.
It's just a big chunk of the paramedic sites, the hospital guys, that they, most of them are already working for EMS.
Sure.
It's a lot, you know, when you dedicate your whole career to lose to somebody who's come into the door year one.
I don't know why anybody would want you to lose seniority in that aspect.
But I mean, just. If you would be, so you would have lots of your shift choices or, you know, things to vacation time, things like that, but, you know.
Like I said, the county can make an agreement with the employees at the time of hire if there is no union assigned by then. We can do that. I'm not saying we will, I'm saying we can.
Right.
But a collective bargaining agreement can change those terms, so just keep that in mind.
Jay?
Somebody has 1 year, 2 years, 19 years, and they lateral over. Don't they have to work 20 years to collect the benefits in the county?
For health insurance and retirement, yes. As of right now, you have to have 20 years with the county in order to take your health insurance into retirement at a lower percentage rate. You have to work 10 years. And if you work 10 years with the county, you get the benefit of the lower cost of health insurance because we're a group, but you pick up the full cost of the health insurance for retirement, in retirement.
So if you came over with 10 years from one of these other agencies, you would have to work an additional 20 years at the county to get your health coverage,
Correct,
In retirement.
in retirement, yes,
but not you retire, because you receive the benefits.
correct.
But that would also be negotiated in contract.
Actually, health insurance benefits are not negotiated in the union contracts. They are established through legislative resolution.
County resolution.
but not all have to get health insurance to retire people anyway. So it's-
I'm just thinking of employees that are close to retirement, and now they find out they have to work an additional 20 years to get benefit.
You can get through that. That's what they retire.
That's pretty texty, so anybody's got any questions, either now or later, you can certainly follow up with us. Civil service law can be archaic. Many laws are, I guess.
And just so you know, right now, the entire civil service system is under a radical review. They are looking to completely change the way civil service law is administered in New York State. I don't necessarily know that it's going to affect what we're talking about here, but I can't guarantee you that it won't. And they're about a year away from finalizing whatever this new version of civil service is gonna look like, so the best I can say to you is stay tuned.
A legislative resolution from us may have the opportunity to bring some of those folks in.
Yes.
But again, that is not collectively bargained.
Correct.
To
But we
account
could
for
do it by
their years of
resolution.
service.
Yes.
Right, to account for those years of service.
Hang on, question. So that it's for the health benefits side of things? Now, if you do that,
Retiree.
if you do an exemption for that, you should have to do that for every other department in the county, especially the sheriff's department. Because there are police officers that have 10, 15, even 20 years on.
Yeah, but they were hired as that,
You know what I'm saying?
as that position.
They were lateral, over.
We've got several.
You're opening a huge can of worms.
Well, you've also got people that are in the sheriff's department that are already retired. And they're eligible for retirement for the state of New York, and now they're working again.
Yeah, we're talking about two different things. Right. We're talking about health insurance for people lateraling over. Happens already currently, it's already changed.
Or we're kind of getting off topic from the ambulance. That's a conversation for another time and place.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong.
I just think
It's just-
you open a huge can of worms if you make an exemption.
It could be.
for this lateral of EMS paramedic with that time coming over to get into the health benefit, because you'd have to make that exemption for any new laterals to any other agency within the county.
Consider.
Point taken.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm gonna move on. Item number 5. Which picks up on our previous discussions with recruitment and creating our own. So this month, the county legislature's agenda action items will be to approve the creation of a paramedic training initiative or training, call it scholarship, if you will, where the board will appropriate. The original conversation and concept was we would sponsor up to 20 people at one of the SUNYs that offers the educational program for someone to obtain their paramedic certification. A similar program to what we've done with the EMTs, but certainly on a much larger scale. Under the whole premise of if part of our problem today is lack of personnel, then we're gonna create our own, and we're gonna encourage people to. You take the responsibility of completing the course, we'll pay for the course. And then there'll be a contract that you will sign where you will owe us X amount of years of service. In other words, we don't send you to school and then you move to Carolina. We send you to school, and I think the resolution would have a 5-year commitment to work for the county. Otherwise, there would be a reimbursement requirement for that. But this is another commitment from the county to recognize that we need people, and that you making a decision to go back to school is daunting, considering the estimated cost. So the county has agreed to launch this program. It probably can be massaged over the years. Maybe we expand it to include more EMT trainings. It could be expanded further with review by the board and budget considerations, but I think the county is stepping up here and saying, we will build our own. We will induce people to come and work for us, by giving you this scholarship. So that's on this cycle.
That will be retroactive also.
No. No, there would be, well,
We can make it retroactive for current enrollees in these schools for paramedics, so they can be.
as written now, it does not include that, but we could amend that on the floor at committee. If you're, pick a date, sometime after.
Right, these students are already gonna be in the pipeline now, and we can let them be aware, whether through advertisement to these schools. That, hey, you complete it, get your training, get your certification, you can get reimbursed your tuition.
Come work in Greene County.
Come work here, or whatever agency it might be.
Yes, so yes, but that's absolutely can be amended to include, if you have not attained your full certification yet, we'll finish the course. Okay. All right, I guess we'll move on then. Just for edification, there's the CON law, procedure, etc. I've had a couple of conversations with DOH about process. If the final decision is the county to create a consolidated system, the county will need to go through the CON application process. It is not monumental. I believe there are actually 2 CONs relative, one to those employees who are in the not-for-profit world, and then a similar or a twin for those who are in the government, already employed by a governmental agency. It's just DOH paperwork, but similar applications. It's not a big haul. You could probably get it done in probably 8 to 10 weeks, the outside. And then in that process, there would have to be agreements that the existing local CONs then would dissolve at some point, leaving the county then to be sole CON at the end. But it's paperwork, it's bureaucracy, but it's nothing that's gonna be a showstopper at all.
Sean, did DOH tell you that existing CONs would have to go away?
Yes,
Because in Columbia County, that has not been the case. They formed a countywide CON and all the individual agencies in Columbia County maintain their individual.
okay. George, it may have been the person I was speaking to, and I can't think of his name right now, but that's what he did say.
But I think they run a much different system than this. They're actually contracting with the ambulance companies to perform the service. So the ambulance company has a CON and they're contracting with the county to provide the service.
Yeah, it's a different system.
This would not do that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit out of my league on CONs, so I guess that, but that's a point of differentiation that may mean that the locals then eventually would need to develop. All right, then just a short note on item number 7, as I mentioned last time, the House and the Senate did pass individual bills on exempting ambulatory service costs from the annual tax cap calculation. It's my understanding the governor is gonna sign that bill, but as we sit here tonight, it is not signed. But everything I've been able to learn, it will be signed. So for us, certainly if the consolidation is the final decision, certainly the first year of operation would have required the county to adopt a resolution to exceed the tax cap. But in this case, we would not have to have that legal step involved as you do normally in your budget process, having a public hearing, et cetera. And I would be responsible to separate the expenses of ambulatory system from the general fund in order to ensure that the general fund expenses have not exceeded the tax cap. and we can go forward. It does not change the math of the calculation. We've talked about this before. This would be a large increase on the county bill with the recognition that the town numbers would come down and how that would blend would depend upon each town, its equalization rates, et cetera. But that's, I fully expect the governor to sign that. And then there was also discussion that the other bill, to allow the formation of a special taxing jurisdiction, will be back on the agenda when the legislature comes back in January. Whether or not that goes anywhere, I don't know, we'll see, but, I would have liked to have seen a specific taxing jurisdiction, but it may be, it's really, it may be, a moot point in terms of the calculation, because it's not gonna change the math in terms of the overall impact to county budget or the corresponding reduction in town budgets.
Yeah, our plan is actually to split that number off for EMS to a separate line item on the tax bill. That says this much is going toward EMS.
I thought, yeah, we talked about that, but that is a means by which to communicate to the community. You know, you see it a lot with special districts. They've got a very specific focus. If it's a waterfront or if it's a fire department or a sewer, it's very specific. That we may be getting into minutia that we don't need to get into, but suffice to say is that if the decision goes through, the county's overall budget is gonna go up and the town's overall budgets are gonna come down by respective dollar amounts that each has. Any questions on that? All right, then I guess really the meat and potatoes tonight, do we still have them on the line?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Greg Cross, can you hear me?
Greg?
Okay, Greg had called me previously. He has a conflict tonight.
There we go. I'm here.
Okay,
Supervisor Tradsville.
So if you-
I'm a little tech unsavvy, but here I am.
all right, well, you had a request if you wanted to call in and make your point, so I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much. When we had our supervisors meeting, we could all agree that we had our own unique reasons for looking for a consolidation. Obviously, you're on a path. Obviously, it does take time. There's a lot of little things to work out along the way. For the town of Prattsville, we do, in my opinion, face an urgent need for some kind of financial assistance. I don't know how it gets done, but what I can tell you is in the last 3 years, 2023, we paid $180,000. 2024, we paid $183,000. 2025, we paid $220,000. And if the numbers we were given are correct from the town of Ashland, in 2026, we'll pay 54% of a $650,000 budget. Our line item will go up 25%. That number will be $281,000. It's really unsustainable. The town of Prattsville, I mean, we're chewing up 130 in fund balance each year, still hitting people with an 8 to 10% tax increase. Plugging in another 25% on the ambulance line item is going to just devastate us. At some point, we have to tap out, and that is in nobody's best interest. If we tap out, Ashland and Lexington will split a budget of $650,000, and that blows their budgets up. So I don't know what can be done. It's budget season. We're faced with a pretty daunting number. It's a vital service. State of New York don't think it's an essential service. I do think it's an essential service. I think Greene County thinks it's an essential service. I don't know what the answer is for Prattsville. I know it's a pretty desperate situation, in my opinion. Thanks for your time.
All right, Greg, thank you.
Why has the cost gone up? Because of usage?
Greg, I believe your tri-town budget is based upon call volume?
That is correct, and we happen to have a nice brand new senior citizen housing. Not to say that's the only cause of it, that's probably 30% of the call volume. But obviously the call volume we say we're being told we have, translates into 54% for next year. This year, we're at 47%. The budget, obviously, from 2024 to 2025 went from 631 to 650. Does 2026 go up again? I have no idea. I won't know that until maybe sometime in November if I'm lucky. And that's not a joke. That really is true. I won't know just before we pass our budget. I'll have to adjust it at the last minute like I have the last 2 years. It's a tough situation in Prassville, I can tell you that. And we want to provide the service, but it's getting to the point where something needs to be done or we're going to break. No doubt about it.
I guess first thing, did anybody have any questions for Greg, or do you understand that, I guess, his dilemma as he's presenting it? The discussion I had with him was the previous supervisor's recommendation was to delay the actual EMT side of the conversion until January 1st, 2027. That we would take some smaller steps for 26 and then not do that for 27. I think, not to put words in his mouth, but can you accelerate that? There's nothing magical about January 1st in terms of effective dates. What's important is, as all of us go through this fall budget cycle, if we're gonna make a decision on start dates, we need to know that prior to these budget adoptions in order for him or say Greenville, or any other town for that matter, to get any kind of budget relief from their side of the equation. Yes, it means that the counties is gonna go up higher in 26 than we originally had anticipated, but there's nothing magical about it having to be January 1st. Yeah. March 1st, October 1st, it could be pick a date.
Well, I mean, this is the same basic formula that Greene EMS uses for their billing. You're based off the previous year's call volume. And that's how the towns are then billed. But I don't know that that's any different. If they have 54% of the call volume, it's 54% of the call volume. I don't know how you change that.
Could I just add to that though? The one thing we don't have any control over is the budget. We have no documentation of how the budget if they come up with the budget. We have no idea how much money's left over at the end of the year for the budget. It's really not a very friendly situation. It just like for instance, they're keeping an eye on 68,000 of the town of Prassville's money right now that they refuse to get back. We have to fight them to get it in the contract every year, but to document, if they give us that 68,000 back that they're keeping an eye on for us to draw an interest, that'd be helpful.
I think that's an issue between the three towns. I think what his point is, he's asking us not to wait until January 1st, 27. That's a collective decision that the 14 members of the board have to make with support by the town too. So, I guess what our point is, both from a civil service and from an onboarding system, it's August.
There's a lot of lifting to do.
There's a lot of lifting to do. We could not do this in 60, 90 days. But certainly pick a date in 26, July 1st, October 1st. Set back off the calendar to do the commencement of that effort and what we call the onboarding process, the verification of credentials, et cetera. We could make a partial transfer. I mean, partial in the sense of the partial fiscal year, at any date that we choose, given sufficient time for the onboarding. Question?
Do we feel that we have enough buy-in at this point to try to start it early? Like 2027 was already pushing it because everybody was not for 2026. Do we have enough buy-in from the staff that we have right now?
Well, that's why it's an item of discussion this evening.
I'm asking it like in general, like collectively, does anybody have an opinion on whether we have enough buy-in to even consider starting it for 2027?
I think.
Sean, I don't see where we can make a commitment right now. We are nowhere near ready to make any kind of commitment about any kind of a date prior to that. That might even be pushing it. And we've had meeting after meeting, we're not really getting too much further ahead with each meeting. I think it's a lot for them to ask us to make this commitment in 2026, when we were originally going to do that. We all said pretty much that's kind of really ambitious. I don't think that's possible. I don't think we can make a commitment to the town of Prattsville that yes, we can do it sometime within 2026, because we're nowhere near ready to make any kind of decision. I think I don't see where we would be able to make a decision that, yeah, we'll do it sometime in 2026. We have no, I don't think any of us know.
And that's really a strictly financial question, because Prattsville doesn't run an ambulance, they don't operate a system like that.
You know, to push it ahead for one town that's having budget issues, I don't think it's fair to every town
Right.
or to anybody to push it ahead just for a town that's having issues with the budget. And I don't think I would be ready to make the commitment that we could do that.
Well, what about this? And I'll just throw this out there, I haven't seen Greene EMS's budget yet. But does it help Prattsville if the county took over 100% on the county side of the Greene EMS budget?
That's,
I don't know what.
that's,
I don't know
that's
what
like,
Prattsville spent.
that's like $8,600. I mean,
Okay,
obviously,
it's not even close.
Yeah.
Okay,
The total value is 370 right now for 25, and that
yeah, roughly.
somewhere. Correct.
I didn't know what Prattsville's portion of that was. But if it's only $8,600, it doesn't get them there anyway.
You can keep going along, I don't believe that we're heading towards the train wreck.
So, and that's what Greg was yelling right now.
We're heading towards the train wreck. I mean, we're in that situation, a lot of the other guys are, whether they believe it or not, they're heading towards. Because of all these escalating costs and everything else. It's just getting to the point where it's gonna become totally unmanageable. And then you're gonna have to scramble like crazy to do it.
I don't know that it becomes manageable by moving it to the county.
I
It
don't
just
know if it
becomes
does,
somebody
but
else's
it
problem.
might be more than- Right.
I mean, really.
So it doesn't matter if it's your town tax pocket or your
I
county
realize
tax
that,
pocket.
but the thing of it is that everybody is doing their own thing right now, and once you put it into one thing for the whole town, it becomes more controllable.
The difference is
No,
we
what
can,
happens is you're gonna spread your costs across the entire county. That's what's gonna happen. Same with Prattsville. So those who have more efficient areas, more consolidated areas, they're still going to pay for the more rural areas, hard to reach areas. That's what this really is. But if you were to take Prattsville and the people who lived in Prattsville and transferred it to their county taxes, it'd be the same amount of money, so it wouldn't matter.
No, not
But you're not
necessarily.
doing that. You're running it across everybody.
Yeah, but you're gonna have efficiencies now that are gonna get rid of.
I haven't seen any efficiencies, Daryl, not on this proposal. I mean, 11 million to 15 million on the low side, doesn't sound like efficiencies to me. But, hey, you make that work, I don't know.
I do think that there's efficiencies if we talk about ALS transporting.
I think training alone,
I think that's a major efficiency that goes from multiple paramedics roving around, bringing one of those medics onto a rig. You're not paying half the rig anymore because now you got the ALS person on the rig. And now you're actually adding more people into the system to work additional shifts.
If you can attract more personnel.
Well, there's one more thing everybody has to realize. Per county, supposed to work together for the benefit of everybody. And I know what's gonna say, everybody's gonna say, well, you know, now for the. Hey, half of the money for the county comes from the mountain, other half comes from down here. If it make you feel better, Mike, maybe we should have two services. We'll have the mountain service and the valley service, and then we actually be divided up and, you know, that's the way it is.
It doesn't matter, Daryl, you're just saying deficiencies and there's no efficiencies when
There
it
is
goes up by 5
efficiencies, as you become a one group.
There's no efficiencies. The numbers don't lie, everybody.
You're not,
You can think they do, but they don't lie.
I think efficiency is about more than numbers though, too, in my opinion.
okay. There's efficiencies in personnel.
Of course, we're not gonna run it like a business.
Well, we're gonna run it like the state runs
We're
everything.
gonna run it like, well, then it'll be shit.
We're gonna run it like an essential service that it is in Greene County.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, I don't think we're also, we're saying there's the mount, we're not worried about the mountaintop because we live in the valley. I don't think any one of the 14 of us feel that way, and I think it's very unfair of you to sit here and say that, Dara.
Yeah, but Mike
Because
just
that's not-
said it. Mike
that's
just
not
said it. I'm
really
just
what
making a
I'm saying.
point, and the point is true. It's not. It's true.
Being very unfair.
14 people decide to go that way as a legislative body. It is what it is. It still doesn't make what I'm saying false. It's still true. Because the numbers don't lie. But
How confident are we in those numbers at this point, given what we've changed and given what we've talked about most recently? I'm talking about the numbers that came out of the Fitch study. I feel like we've come a long way since then, and I don't even know that Fitch study sort of accurately portrayed what we're asking for.
We
To be
actually
perfectly
added,
honest.
we added from the Fitch study. So the numbers are higher. I would say, I wouldn't say they're extremely accurate. Because a lot of this you just don't see until it's there.
Well, these numbers too aren't reflecting if there is some sort of exemption, carrying time over into the health system.
Nope.
Now, that's an unexpected cost that you guys haven't accounted for now. That's a new lot.
We also changed the amount of rates that were.
Yeah, we increased rate. Brian?
So, was there other things decided in other meetings? Like, is that proposal that they gave, is that concrete, what's happening? Cause that when we left the last meeting, the proposal was explained, was discussed, but no motion moving in any specific direction. Like, we didn't say, this is what we're going for, here's the rubber stamp, this is what we're all moving to. That felt like what it was, with maybe some tweaks, but now it's being discussed like, it's all gonna be all ALS ambulances only, it's all like, is that all decided, or is that still up for discussion?
No, when we met with the town supervisors, everybody is obviously gonna have their own opinion on what they think is better system, that is fire departments and ambulance. We're never going to come up with the perfect system that works right off the bat, I would say. So when we left the town supervisor meeting, which was a great meeting, we left it as they were gonna recommend to the legislators that they hire a executive director, and that executive director, maybe a team, or one assistant, two assistants, or somebody comes forward with that budget and that plan.
The way it's being talked about is that there's efficiencies that are from ALS only ambulances that are happening, like it's a foregone conclusion. But I don't remember that ever actually being decided, at least in this.
It was a major topic. It was, it was a major topic that we discussed, but, sorry, forgetting. She is 100% right that the supervisors, we know as far as like designing the system, we're not the guys.
Well, right, but
And so do we.
then you just, then you just brought it up as it's a foregone conclusion, and that's gonna be.
No, I brought it up as a suggestion. And, as a suggestion to look for efficiencies. So our 100% foregone conclusion is that there should be somebody that is running this ball down the field, right? That is charged with that, with a team of people that is helping him or her to decide how this system is going to be designed and run. That's it. And the time frame. That, to go back to, this call and everything, I mean, there was a lot of uncomfortable feelings from not only town supervisors, but legislators, et cetera, with the abbreviated timetable.
I agree 100%.
So the supervisors came up with a plan to phase it in. starting with the, we go through the whole plan again, starting with the coordinator, starting with that support staff,
Right.
bringing in Greene
The
EMS.
way things were being discussed, it seemed like it was, the things that were being discussed right now in this meeting seemed like they were going off of things that had already been decided in a separate meeting or something.
I don't think
I
anything's
wanna
been
make
decided.
sure everyone was on the same page.
This actually brings more information in for the
Yeah.
first time to this group as to what needs to be done here, how big of a lift we have to make this happen. It's not something that we can do in 90 days or 6 months even. What are some of the interim things that we could do? I don't know. But that's not gonna get a countywide system started. I believe, and I think the legislature believes that we're not the ones to design how an EMS system gets built.
I appreciate that, cause I agree.
However,
I don't know how to do any.
I'll put the caveat in there that we don't have a champagne budget.
I understand.
So that's where this comes down to,
I'm a taxpayer.
the board is the one that has to approve this. So as it's designed, that's gotta be kept in mind, which I think we've all done.
Yeah. For, the room, can I just reiterate the plan, just the abbreviated plan real quick that we had suggested? And,
We all have it, yeah.
yeah,
This is it, right?
is that it? I didn't.
There's a sheet here, not stated from you, the supervisors or anything.
I got the whiteboard abbreviation. Yeah, this is it.
This is great. How about that? From your meeting.
Greene County hires the EMS coordinator. Greene EMS becomes a county agency, that's 2026. 2027, system rollout, service expansion, county EMS launches as described below. Which goes into some detail. The benefits. System-wide equity, fiscal relief for towns, improved clinical outcomes, flexible and scalable, public trust and engagement. So, and that leaves out some of the stuff that Sean just presented tonight, which is we're going after recruitment in paramedics. We wanted that. We wanted countywide buying power. That's another potential efficiency.
Which we can do sooner
Yeah.
than 2026 too.
And standardization in care. That's what we threw out.
I think we're working toward the same goals that we've discussed, Rick.
Hey, I just, wanted to be on record, once again, town of Coxsackie, town board of town of Coxsackie is not interested in having the county take over Greene EMS as a precursor or to have this contingent on that. We think Greene EMS should go fine. Maybe someday, that'd be good for it. But the town of Coxsackie was not. And I go to my door, it's not just me.
So a couple things, Sean,
No,
on that
walk
sheet
it back.
that you guys talked about.
Yep.
I know what you're doing is trying to get regional, they call it regional equity. But if we don't get the personnel, the only thing that's gonna happen is county-run agency, you will have lower times on the mountaintop, more rural areas, and increased time, lower time, but increased time in the other areas that are already, so let's use a figure, say it takes Catskill 12 minutes is their time. But now Hunter is 15 minutes. Or 16 minutes. Well, in order for regional equity in the system, and it can only work if we get the personnel.
Well, I fully agree, we need the personnel.
Because you're either gonna decrease your time and increase Catskill's time for regional equity, or Catskill's time is gonna remain low, and with additional personnel, you're gonna be able to bring your time down to Catskill's time.
See, I don't know, you're pigeonholing this into a Catskill or Coxsackie
No,
or
I'm not,
Mountaintop.
I'm just telling
No,
you,
you are.
unless we get personnel back, it's.
I don't disagree with your point,
Transferring the problem.
but it doesn't mean that ambulance is gonna be sitting in Catskill either,
Oh, but what I'm saying.
which is the point of a regional system.
The mountaintops kind of go down and the valleys kind of go up.
Well, the reason would be is if you don't get more personnel to fully staff, then you can't situate those ambulances, we can't get to what is it, 10 ambulances
We put
over
it
there?
down to EMS,
What?
we put it down with three EMS.
We do what?
The times are lower on the mountaintop than they were, and they're actually the same as they are down in the valley.
Okay.
So I don't understand
It
why.
can be done.
I
Okay,
don't
so
understand.
you have the times are the same.
Where's your basis of facts that, because we go to the system, the mountaintop's gonna get better service?
No, I'm just making the point is without personnel and increasing, the system can't get the numbers down.
We definitely need more personnel.
That's true.
100%.
That's true.
Get the numbers.
That's why we're here.
We definitely need more personnel, but what I would say is that right now, the system is working pretty good, right, as far as the response times.
Right, I mean, if everyone's
far as
happy, if
response times.
your constituents are happy with response times, then you can talk about a consolidated system as is. To try to keep those response times like they are,
Well, I think that was sort of the,
You can't do it as is.
but you can't do it as is.
But we did come up with other ideas to try to make it a better system and bring in more people.
I'm hopeful that paramedic scholarships and things like that will
yeah,
attract
it's all good
more
stuff.
personnel to Greene County for this system, absolutely, it's just until then, until we have a knowledge of that, that's why I say 2027, like Patty. Getting to 2027 gives you that time to see how this is gonna play out. Without, a transfer ahead of time, and then the county is just in the same situation that all the towns were in, but now it's a county agency.
Problems are running out of time.
Well,
You can't,
before-
you can't wait. You can't kick the can down the road forever. You gotta grab the bull by the horns, get it done and go for it.
It's been kicked down the road 10 years now.
I know, that's, it's been way overdue.
But you can't rush it either. I realize.
No, but we're not rushing it, we're 10 years down the road.
No, the
We are now.
process that we just
That's why we
started
put
now.
Greene EMS into play whenever 10
Exactly.
years ago.
But you gotta start doing something, otherwise you won't even get there, because all you'll be saying is, what if? Nothing will get done.
Well, I think I'd rather be really sure about what we're doing than say, you know what, let's half-ass it, don't work.
It's gotta work, there's no other
Well,
than.
listen, the supervisors put together a plan. And we've had nobody say that the plan has major issues. If there's an alternative plan, let's talk about it.
I don't dislike this at all.
I like the plan.
I think that's a well done, synopsis of your meeting. It's just from a county perspective, you wanna promote regional equity and then you wanna reallocate town funds in this. Reallocate budgets. That doesn't tell me that your taxes are gonna go down and the county taxes are gonna go up at the same level. So, as a taxpayer, I'm saying, wait a second. So that's a point of part of your.
Steve, did you have a question?
I'll bring up the same question tonight that I brought up at the supervisors meeting, which I thought was the direction that it was left in. If this room, for whatever reason, decides it needs to be 13 ALS ambulances, whatever reason, and they hire, tonight it's Pat, last time it was Tommy, sorry Tommy, Pat, you run the new ambulance company. If you go out there in the beginning of 2026 and you decide, nope, actually it needs to be 10 ambulances and 3 fly cars, what happens? Does the whole thing go upside down because no, we agreed on 13 ambulances? Or do you go if we get hired to say, we know the EMS system is the way it needs to be? Because we could sit here, if you ask every single person in this room how it should go, we're all gonna have a different opinion. Never gonna get there. And what happens? What is the answer? Is it,
I think that executive director is the one that makes that decision and brings it to the legislature
okay,
and says, this is what I propose. If we've got an issue with that, then it's incumbent on us to say, listen, that's gonna be too much. We need to scale this back. But I don't think, my opinion, it's not our wheelhouse. We shouldn't be the ones making the operational decisions.
I would have to agree that if the thought in the room is you're gonna flip the switch at some point, it's gonna go 13 ALS ambulances, you don't have the providers to do that. I say that also knowing that you don't really have the providers to staff that you have now. Go back 6 months ago, the Venn diagram of providers is ridiculous. So you need to get providers into the system, you need to outfit the system to provide the best response times, but I think you need to look at it. You know, if you're gonna consolidate into one agency, you need to look at it by Catskill needs 4 ambulances, Coxsackie needs 2, the Mountaintop needs 5, whatever those numbers are, and then you staff accordingly. And you can't go in and say, we need to have 13 ambulances, we don't know where they are, what they are, who they are. We need staff, come on down and work.
But we can't get there without, not going against what you're saying. But I just feel like the meeting, I'm not a legislator, so I'm sorry if I offend anybody. I feel like we're 5 miles backward in the hamster wheel, we're just going backwards, I felt like we made some ways. Up until today where everybody's going back and forth, that's what I'm gonna cause, because they don't want to down your budgeting and all that other stuff, but I feel like in order to get anywhere, you gotta hire the executive director, and then let them come up with the whole question. But without that, executive director, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
And, you know, maybe it's a hybridized system with a goal in mind. Maybe we start out just like we are and we start hybridizing, right? And converting over time. I mean, like,
And with Nicole, with what she brought up,
Yeah.
that we have to make sure that our current employees are eligible for civil service.
Correct.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is there's absolutely no way we're flipping a switch in 26. I can't do it. There's no way for me to be able to do that, and have enough time to take care of the employees that it's gonna be critical for them to come over to us. We need the employees to come over, so it's very unfortunate that we can't do it for 1/1/26, but logistically, it's impossible for my office to do that. Could I potentially do it halfway through 26? I could, but that is a huge, huge lift. I have a staff of 5.
And right now, today, I can't tell you whether this falls under an emergency services position, if this is a completely new department, if this falls under the sheriff. You know, where does this logistically wind up? I don't know. We have some of the things that we're looking at that already exist in other departments, that we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. It's all part of the discussion, but, it just hasn't been decided.
I have a question
So what needs to
here.
happen for these, like, actual decisions to be made? Like, what needs to be done for there to be like a solid concrete, this is what we're doing? Because at this point, this is at least since last summer with these meetings and the paperwork and the ideas and the back and forth, what needs to happen so we all know what's actually going on?
We're literally working on this right now so that we have numbers for the 2027 or 2026 budget. Right, so October, we'll present our budget. That's only 3 months from now.
So what are we presenting a budget for? Is it based off of this plan that we've been given a copy of we want 13 ALS ambulances or whatever the.
We're not even there yet.
So what are we doing a budget based off of then? So if we're not going off of that plan that was given to us and said that this is the potential proposed idea, what are we coming up with a budget off of?
The budget will be based off of what we think we can get accomplished in 26. Then in 26, we have to do the same exercise on a grander scale for the 27 budget to start this in 27.
Which would be hopefully hiring an executive director and the team.
In 26, yes.
You gotta start with a director and then you can start providing, figuring out exactly what you need where and getting your
Yeah, and
priorities straight.
in the meantime, we have to keep the current system running.
Exactly.
So I can't hire an executive director that's gonna do this. That's gonna be tied up with calls all day long either. That's gonna be a difficult thing to work through. So it's, it's not just as easy as saying, okay, this person's gonna do it, because that person right now is actually doing EMS work, I'm sure, in one way or another. Daryl?
So I hear a lot of discussion about this, that, and the other thing, but the whole process of this, of the meetings was to create a system that kind of mirrored the EMS system by Greene. I hear people saying, well, Catskill needs 4 ambulances, Mountain needs 5. That's really not the way the system is designed. It's designed to
Countywide.
rotate around and go around.
Correct.
So 13 ambulances, you know what? If it's too many, Jesus, that's great, because I'd rather have too many ambulances than not enough. So if they're flying around the county and doing what the fire cars are doing, that's what we got them for. So you gotta think, not like the system is now. That's why we're coming up with this new system, is because it's not what we have now. We don't need 3 ambulances in Greenville and 5 in Hunter and this.
I don't know.
It's supposed to be
We have,
static.
we have specific districts who have specific call volumes.
I think
So
that's
my
what we
district
discussed,
isn't gonna need
where
to
they be
catch it.
stationed more than where they would be permanent. Like, obviously, it's all gonna be a moving system, similar to the system status, but I think it was stationed this many here, because this is where the higher call volume spots are. It wasn't like they have to stay within this district of the.
Take the needs of the towns out of the equation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Five
system's
ambulances in the
changed
valley,
much
5
more.
ambulances in the.
Again, that's operational, and it's not something that we should be getting involved in,
Why though?
I had another, because.
because we're legislators.
Right, but it's a lot of what ifs for people to not have answers, like you guys don't have enough buy-in from the staff that we have. And all the unknown, all the mystery, all the lack of solid information, you guys are gonna lose people to other counties and other agencies simply for the lack of unknown. And lack of solid information and decision.
But what,
Yet we have a process, we have to do it in steps. But
Sure.
you've got about 100-something providers in the county. You got a chunk that are retiring, a chunk who are brand new, a chunk who are actively already looking elsewhere. And already leaving the county to go to other agencies out of Greene.
but would you rather work for that agency that was designed by a Steve Neer, or would you rather that system that you would work for would be designed by me as a legislator?
Personally, I don't care who designs it, as long as it makes sense.
Well, I think
And it's not.
Except that I don't.
For the people that live here and the people who work here. I personally don't have a preference of who wants to be king of the castle, I just want answers as to when someone does that.
Well, I think the person that designs it should know what they're doing.
So. I it was in the, 422 article, and I thought it was maybe a misprint. But then you just said something about it. Where did the sheriff, I haven't heard the sheriff's office discuss in the last 5 meetings being a part.
It was actually brought up in the last meeting here.
Yeah, well.
Maybe,
The sheriff's office.
move a little closer.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is that this thing was looking for some EMS supervisor or administrator to be hired. We have a director of emergency services and a Greene County EMS coordinator already. So, I don't know how this can already not be taking place without even having to worry about hiring somebody.
I think
Whether it's moving ambulances around to, better areas, so you got coverage, I think that's already happened, right? So,
But it's already happening because of our dispatchers are doing it.
I think
It's a-
that we deserve as the EMS provider, an executive director, just because dispatch moves ambulances doesn't mean that we don't deserve executive director. Then we also would have a chief for operations that handles day by day operations and making sure everybody's doing their charts and their cars are moving and whatever.
Sure, change the title, captain, lieutenant.
The dispatchers moved them based off of what the EMS council all agreed to as a mutual aid plan presented by the EMS coordinator. So that's how that came to be, was it was something agreed upon by all the administrators, then the dispatch is the one that carried it out. They weren't the ones that came up with it. So there are things at play where these entities are doing things in the county to alleviate some of the stresses that are currently occurring.
I understand
But I
that.
think that since this will be, correct me if I'm wrong, the largest department in the county, right? And most employee heavy department in the county, I think it deserves its own executive director. Not underneath someone else's wing, and that someone may not have any EMS experience whatsoever. I think this county, is something that this county has done for the last 25 years,
Point taken.
has been taking EMS very seriously.
I disagree, but point taken.
Well, but I think that you guys take EMS very seriously in this county. You're one of the few that does. And I think we all appreciate that as providers, that you take EMS as a priority. I think that it needs to have, if it's gonna especially be the largest county department, it deserves its own person running it that is EMS focused. I don't think putting it under the wing of someone else who has zero EMS experience is the way to go. That's my personal opinion, and I think probably the opinion of most of my coworkers.
Yeah, I just had a question for Nicole. I don't know if this is possible. Thank God, HR stuff is not my wheelhouse. What are the possibilities? Because if you're looking whether you're gonna try to onboard 80 to 100 employees or whatever astronomical number they've come up with, is it possible or not to start the process, get all the HR stuff ready to go, and just have the PCFs at a future date?
Yeah.
So you could theoretically have the staff ready to be onboarded so that that start date.
Name, rank, and serial numbers would be in the computer files.
And that's what I was wondering, if like all the legwork, the background checks.
That's what we call the onboarding system, will be loading all that data.
So that could, you know,
But
be
again,
spread out over time,
it-
because that's a burden on your office.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm saying, can I do that for 1/1/26? Absolutely not. Can I do that for 1/1/27? Yes, with clear direction, yes, I can absolutely do that, because again, I am a staff of 5. And this, I can't have every staff member stop doing what we do on a daily basis to just focus on this. But if I have enough lead time, you know, I can do group orientation here. And then the data entry after the fact, and the data entry is daunting. It would make your head spin if you knew what the data entry looked like, not just for our payroll system, but for health insurance and for other benefits and stuff like that. It's a lot. But yes, if I have enough lead time, it is something that we can do building up to that
Keep it
date.
in a pending status. Okay.
Nicole, are there specific agencies, state level, federal level, or private agencies that would, specialize in emergency services, HR situation where your department wouldn't be burdened so much? And that the county could opt to contract with them?
I can't contract what could potentially be done by a union member.
Right. And listen, I've seen what happens when sheriff's deputies from other states come to New York. They don't care. You have the same onboarding process, even when it's already approved by another state. You can't go out of state for something like that.
Again, with enough lead time, I can do it. There's no doubt about it. I'm confident that my office can handle this. I just have to have a direction and a time frame.
Maybe that's another question. Say this does happen and, you know, we create 120 more positions in the county, would that create other departments that would have to hire more staffing, like say?
Fine. I've
Would
requested an additional staff member for next year.
Would that come out of our, like, the EMS line budget because it created more jobs in other departments?
No, I requested it in my budget. I've requested one additional staff member to help with this, because even once they're onboarded, I now have to track another 120 employees, health insurance, all that kind of stuff. So it will definitely require another staff member.
So right now, that's what we've been talking about, is a little bit of what can we do for 26? Who do we need to hire? Is it one person? Is it 3 people? Is it a team? What do we need to hire for 26 to develop this system and get everything on board and get it going? That's gotta be a budget number for the 26 budget, which we don't have yet. And then in 26, we move ahead with the rest of the system. In 26, the end of 26, we would have then a budget number, the full, whatever that number winds up being, 12 million, 15 million, spelled out. That's kind of the way I see this playing out.
That's it.
So does the county legislature need to discuss us creating, hiring this executive director so that you
Yeah, well,
guys,
yeah,
yeah,
that's gonna have to be part of the discussion right now
yeah.
amongst the board to say, okay. What's that position look like? It's why we have
Or how
the
many,
job description on there tonight. We've gotta get that position approved, we've gotta get that position developed, we've gotta get, all that has to be done. Or prior to whatever date we're gonna hire, if it's January first. Personally, I think that's late, but, if it's January first, we have to have all that developed prior to that.
because to me, that's step one, and that determines the rest of the timeline from there.
I agree, it should be up to an EMS professional to build that team and build this system within our confines.
And that's like one of the first things we need to do as a board, we need to get that done ASAP, and then we'll have like a better direction where we're going. Right now, we're involved in.
I mean, we're typically Labor Day-ish is when we have our budget prepared. Not ready to present anything like that, but prepared. So we're not far off schedule as far as the county is concerned with this. Now that we're not gonna have this full system ready to go in 26.
Yeah.
We're fine where we are. We basically need to pick a number that says, how many people are we hiring? How much is it gonna cost us? And then work on those job descriptions and get them approved. Right. Then we hire the positions. And it goes from there. It's, I say that simple, it's not that simple, but that's what has to happen. So, maybe. Is it a 250,000? Is it 300,000? I don't know yet. But yeah, there has to be a number for next year that. Will bring,
Theoretically, once you've got somebody, you could pretty much start implementing some of this. Like in little waves, where, you pick up Bradsfield, Hunter, stuff like that. And then work on down through as you're doing the system.
yeah, I would only caution that. Like tonight's call from Prattsville.
Yeah.
It would be great if we could say, well, you know what, let's hand $50,000 to Prattsville and that will help them out for next year. But I can't just hand $50,000 to Prattsville without handing $50,000 to every county.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not sure exactly what we can do on the Prattsville side of things. Because I think
so much about.
I think their billing is the same thing that we do with a lot of other things. They're paying based on the percentage that they're using.
Yeah.
So, all right, then, I expect that everybody will have their paperwork into Nicole to get onto the list.
I think that's definitely now.
Nicole, you'll have it. We're on board, you're gonna get funded.
I know, I'm expecting.
Nicole, is there a way we can send staff members to like view on a civil service website or something to check their statuses?
No, unfortunately, there's not, but I have, there's an email address, civilservice@greenecounty.ny.gov. If somebody wants to send an email to that, I have somebody who monitors that on a daily basis that can check status.
We run into staff, we feel like if you have a question, we didn't
Yeah, if they-
know where to point them to.
Exactly, if they're not sure if they're on there, have them shoot a quick email to that and we'll get back to them in the same day.
All right, then at this point, I don't think this group, needs to meet next month. I think the table is set. I will work with Nicole on the job titles. We'll do some research on, wages. And I will then brief my board on a cost estimate for what I've been referring to as the back of the office personnel to commence, whether it's January 1st, 06 or March 1st, 06 or whatever it may be. And after that, then it's status quo, both from a Greene EMS standpoint and from the operating systems that are in place for 26. That the director could do some efficiencies on contracts or training, purchasing, that would fall down to your respective town budgets for twenty-six. But then have the system in place to go effective for seven.
Will the legislative people meet next month to be?
If I can put together some numbers, yeah, could be part of my workshop in September. I can't go past September because we usually wrap up the budget in October. So, we're down to short strokes now for that account.
Be there? Yeah, let's see.
All right, class dismissed. Thank you.
Thank you.